Have you ever woken up from a dream that was just so completely out there, so bizarre, you just had to ask yourself, where on earth did my brain come up with that? Of course you have. Well, we're about to dive into a really fascinating new theory that might just explain the strange, creative, and sometimes genius logic behind those nightly adventures. Let's pull back the curtain on our dreaming minds.
So, to get our heads around how your brain actually builds a dream, we're going to start with a little creative game. Trust me, this exercise is a perfect stand-in for what's happening inside your head every single night.
All right, here's the challenge for you. I'm about to give you 5 words that seem totally random. Your job? See if you can weave them together into one single, coherent story. Just think about it for a second. Okay, here they are. Naked, suitcase, airport, guard, and documents. How would you even start to connect those? You know, is it some kind of spy thriller, a vacation that's gone horribly wrong? The real trick is finding those hidden threads, the little connections that can bridge these totally separate ideas.
Do you have a story in mind? Well, that little creative puzzle you just worked through, that's almost exactly what your brain does every night when it dreams. It takes these seemingly random bits and pieces of memory, and somehow, against all odds, it forces them into a narrative.
The new theory that explains this is called the brain kinematics model, or BKM for short. And it suggests that dreaming isn't just some abstract thing, it's actually a physical process. The model talks about these strain carrier waves. You can think of them like little currents of energy flowing through your brain, and as they move, they light up different memories. The dream you experience is just your mind's best attempt to tell a story that connects whatever got lit up.
Now, to really get this, we have to talk about the 2 very different kinds of memories your brain is playing with, especially when you're asleep. So on one hand, you have what are called consolidated meanings. The best way to think about these is as your mental anchors. These are your solid, stable, long-term memories, things like who you are, your name, the fact that a key opens a lock. Their neural pathways are super strong, really dense. They're the things that hold your world together.
And then, on the other hand, you have residual or floating meanings. And these are much more like mental dust motes. They're just recent, leftover bits from your day. A face you saw, a feeling, a stray thought. Their connections are really weak, so they just kind of float around, ready to attach to almost anything.
So here is the absolute crucial point. When we're awake, our logical brain relies almost completely on those solid, heavy anchors. But when we dream, the brain lets those little dust motes, all those floating ideas, come out and play. It gives them almost equal weight as the big, important memories.
And this, as you can imagine, leads to a massive shift in the rules of the game. Your brain is literally playing by a different rule book when you're asleep.
See, our waking mind usually stays in that strong and stable box, our core memories, our personal identity. But in a dream, the brain just pulls from everywhere. It mixes those stable facts with really volatile connections and even just random leftover sensory bits. It's a free-for-all.
And here's the result of that. Waking stories are built on logic and context. Dream stories are built on feeling and association. In a dream, the rules get all loosey-goosey. Meanings become super flexible, and all of a sudden, a passport can be linked to a feeling of vulnerability instead of just being about a trip to the airport.
Okay, so let's apply this to that real dream example from our word game. The dream starts with the person being totally naked on a bus and feeling embarrassed, right? A classic anxiety dream. We've all been there.
But the BKM gives us a much more specific way to talk about this. That feeling of nakedness isn't just random anxiety. It's a direct symbol of what the model calls a strain imbalance. The brain is literally simulating a state where its usual layers of self-protection are gone. So then, the story moves on. The dreamer remembers they forgot their suitcase. And what's inside? Their passport, all their documents. Suddenly, the very core of their identity is missing from the scene.
So the BKM calls this a theme memory displacement. The brain is modeling a cognitive glitch. It's like it's moved on to a new scene, but a really critical piece of data, that consolidated memory of identity, it got left behind. The dream's plot is a direct simulation of this internal hiccup.
And finally, we get to the resolution. After some weird stuff with a maze-like building and a guard, the suitcase is found. It's safe. And just notice that immediate shift in feeling.
Now is feeling I am not naked anymore, feeling convenient.
This is the whole point of the dream narrative. The dream ends with strain balance restoration. By finding that suitcase, the brain has successfully grabbed that missing identity unit and plugged it back in, resolving the initial imbalance. That feeling of being clothed again isn't just a random detail, it's the emotional signal that the cognitive problem has been solved.
So what does all this weirdness actually mean? What's the big takeaway? Well, it turns out these strange stories aren't just random brain noise. They are actually the work of a strange kind of genius, and they serve a really vital function.
By bending the rules, your dreaming brain can do things your waking mind just can't. It can connect a feeling you had yesterday with a forgotten memory from 10 years ago. It finds these incredibly creative links between things you'd never consciously put together. It's like a nightly session of creative problem-solving and emotional integration that our logical waking minds are just too rigid to even try.
So the next time you wake up from a really bizarre dream, don't just write it off as being random. Maybe ask yourself, what distant ideas was my brain trying to connect? What kind of imbalance was it trying to fix? And maybe the most important question of all, what problem could my next dream solve?